I'm Ryan,
And I'm Nick.
and you're listening to Going Offsides, presented by the Lacrosse Collective on the Lacrosse All-Stars Podcast Network.
Welcome back to another episode of Going Offsides, presented by the Lacrosse Collective. On today's episode, I sit down with Jack Smith, the current assistant coach at Lawrence Tech University of the NAIA, and we discuss things like his background, how he got to LTU, how LTU has grown over the last 5 years, the NAIA as a whole, and how fall ball might look. Jack, why don't you start off by telling people a little bit about yourself?
My story is kind of wild. So I originally went to college at Northern University, a private school in Midland, Michigan. There for about a year and a half, and decided that I wanted to. They didn't have college lacrosse; it wasn't varsity sponsored, and I had a couple travel buddies that were playing at Lawrence Tech at the time, and it was the closest thing to home. It was about 45 minutes away from my house. So I decided it would probably be a grand idea to transfer to a pretty rigorous academic institution and play lacrosse and commute. And I found very quickly that was a very difficult and daunting task. At the time, LTU was competing in the MCLA. So I was just like, oh, it's just club lacrosse and they're giving out athletic scholarships. And I'm like, this is like the ideal situation. And little did I know that I was walking into absolute chaos, and chaos I embraced and loved. And I eventually kind of like settled in at the university. I had to sit my first year due to some transfer rules with my credits, and then finally got super geared up and ready to go. We brought in a new assistant coach, and then it was going great. We had about 14, 15 dudes playing teams with like 20 to 30 to 40 people, and beating them was an awesome experience, pretty surreal. And then like mid-March of the season, not like I was like some outstanding athletic like player or anything like that, but suffered a torn meniscus in my knee, tried to like push through it. And, with a roster that small, you kind of like either do something with playing and like kind of bite the bullet, or me and the assistant coach, who's now the head coach, decided that it was best that maybe I was time to put some khakis on and help run the box. And ever since then, I really haven't left the box. I went from just like being a student, like lacrosse player, helping out on the field, to now being in my fourth season as an assistant coach there. Currently the defensive coordinator, head of recruiting. And then on top of that, I'm also going to my third year, can't believe that, as a head coach at Romeo High School, my alma mater. And then I also coach travel with the Juice Cherries. So wearing a lot of hats these days. Currently an LTU student, as many people like to point out. So it's like kind of living the dream in the spring of not seeing my friends or my family. But definitely a really wild journey for me. Something most people don't experience in the coaching ranks, but a journey I thoroughly enjoyed and have put to the task and got better every single day with it. So I mean, it's definitely my lifeblood. As you know, Nick, you and me are, coaching's our life. So this is what we have right now.
Right. I mean, you're what, 22 years old, 23?
Yeah, I just actually turned 24 this past month.
So yeah, most 24-year-olds, the typical coaching, path is to play 4 years, become a GA, then become an assistant coach, hopefully paid. And, you've been able to kind of do that for like the last 3 or 4 years while getting your degree. You're fortunate enough to you coach one of your brothers, right? So
I coach Joel. I coach Joel at LTU, and then I coach actually my youngest brother at Romeo. So I get the opportunity.
There's another Smith.
There's another Smith, the tall Smith, if you can believe it, the one that's actually over 5'8". So
there you go, physical specimen in that house.
Yeah, it's a ton of height at my house. Some people are shrubs, some people are trees, but the shrubs always look a little better,
Yeah.
So it's definitely super cool to be able to coach those guys at both levels. They're both like two different type of people, so it's definitely unique. You gotta kind of be a different coach and you got to be a brother at the same time, but you got to find that separation when the whistle blows. So it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
absolutely. I'm sure it makes for some interesting dinner talk at the table.
Oh, absolutely.
So, 5 years ago, you go to LTU playing in the MCLA. How much has changed from that time to where we are today, where we're on the cusp of seeing the NAIA sponsor lacrosse as a championship sport?
Um, I think that years of establishment at MCLA has made it quite the organization, and I think the NAIA is definitely heading in that direction. I think that it's the organization with the NAIA the first couple of years was coach driven for sure, and we're very fortunate at the NAIA to be able to offer the athletic aid for most universities and be able to pull in some serious talent. And now more than ever, I feel like the whole organization or unit is really heading in the right direction. It's definitely growing. You see like 3 or 4 teams pop up, and people had questions of sustainability for a couple of years, but you're starting to see most of those like top tier NAIA teams, especially those in like top 5, really compete with their regional D3 teams and even some of their lower end D2 teams. So I think the NAIA is booming. I think it's a great opportunity for student athletes to pursue. Anytime you can get your college paid for athletically and academically while getting a great education, I think is the ideal path. But I'm very happy to be coaching in the NAIA. The Cherries program is a very successful travel program, and those guys are more so on the path to go Division I most of the time. And at times I was thinking, I'm like, oh man, maybe my job is to eventually move on out of LTU, but I've kind of fallen in love with the university, and the NAIA is kind of just heading in the right direction. So there's not really any reason for me to leave. So
Right.
I speak volumes of it. I mean, I preach it to my high school kids about pursuing NAIA sports in general, but the lacrosse players, I'm like, there's so much opportunity out there for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand what it is. I mean, when I had to explain it to people, because I was an NAIA coach for 3 years,
Yeah.
I was like, we're basically those medium to small D3 schools with a D2 athletic model. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. We've got the same type of campuses of the D3s. The WAC compares very well to the MIAA here in Michigan. So, there's a lot of schools. Look at Siena Heights and Adrian. One D3, one NAIA, one WAC, one MIAA. They're like 5 minutes apart. The campuses are
across the street. Yeah.
Yeah, they're literally identical type situationally. They're very similar campuses, very similarly run, and I would argue over the past few years, Siena Heights would definitely be the better in that matchup. So
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
it's interesting. People are most of the time just misinformed or uneducated on the idea of it. Um, you know, I, I was always recruiting against some decent regional D3s and some terrible lower end D2s. We were always stealing kids saying, you could go play D2 if that's just what you want to say to people, is that I have a D2 scholarship and live in the middle of nowhere and get an okay education. Or you can live in some bigger cities and get a good product as well. So yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of that. I mean, even just this past off season, I've seen a lot of D2 players moving around, joining some NAIA teams, going from St. Leo to Indiana Tech or LMU to Indiana Tech. Those are 2 examples. I mean, Siena Heights got one as well. I know. Who did you just get recently?
Well, I mean, Jack Johnson, when he's from UIndy, but
Yep.
he's also D2 guy. And then our face-up guy is actually a D2 guy from Alabama Huntsville. So.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so it's funny. It's like, death comes in threes kind of thing, and now it's like everyone's kind of like loading up on, especially at that level, because in comparison to D3, we play Hope College every year. Coach Shanholz is a man.
Yeah, we used to play him too.
It's an awesome opportunity to play those guys. He has a great team, and they're the mantle of the MIAA right now. And we give them a 1 goal game like every year, and it's never discouraging because those guys are the front of it. And like just this fall, we went and played Seton Hill down in Ohio, and they got some big athletes. There's undoubtedly some big athletes, and I was that you kind of make the comparison, like that Seton Hill team could beat some mid-low D1 teams. It's like, oh my God. And listen, we didn't get crushed, but we definitely didn't play an 8 or 9 goal game against those guys. And it's like seeing that jump. Years ago when like Denison like beat Michigan, it was like unheard of, and now you like kind of look at the balance of the field. So I think that happens now. Absolutely not. I think Michigan crushes Denison, but it's crazy to see where the growth of teams goes and how fast they go. I mean, just in the past couple of years, you look at Kaiser University. Like Kaiser University, Patrick made that team in literally 1 year and took it to the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, who got a bunch of dudes from West Palm Beach playing Reinhardt, and now it's like it's happening
and a couple
everywhere.
Canadians, of course, always a couple Canadians.
Oh yeah,
like
they had a really talented team, and now you see it more than ever. And that Weber International in Florida, I mean, they got a legitimate coach, at the mantle over there, and they got some serious talent coming down there. So I think that people, especially some of the younger coaches, want to see the NAIA be a big faction right now, but I think it's going to take a couple of years, and in that couple of years, as long as you let it grow at the proper rate, it doesn't burn out too quickly, it's going to be an awesome organization to be a part of.
Yeah, I think the quality's on the rise, the coaching's on the rise. I think the other thing too is it just needs more brand recognition. When it comes to basketball or football or baseball, the NAIA actually has quite a bit of history, has turned out some Hall of Famers, but lacrosse is already a newer or a younger developing sport in general in modern society. So NAIA is even younger in that scale. So it'll be good. It'll keep growing. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of overlap between the tiers. There's some low level D1s that would lose to some high level D3s. There's some really, teams like Reinhardt and Kaiser and you guys at LTU. I mean, you could definitely hang with some really good D3s and some mediocre to low end D2s. And people just need to understand that. And also I think they need to understand, this happens all the time, that scrimmages are oftentimes misleading. So unless it's a real game, we shouldn't be doing the transitive property to compare levels of talent.
I completely agree.
I hear that way too often.
Recently, like you're speaking, it's like, you play like a lower level club team. In the first half, you destroy them. In the second half, you put your backups in and they somehow win the game. Something like that happens.
Or you see like at a cancer showcase, you see a D3 team play, a high level D2, but the D2 team only plays like their freshmen. Like you don't know you don't know the situation. Every coach treats it differently. So
absolutely, 100%. Yeah. I think more than ever, passing the eye test is a big thing for a lot of people. But like the people always know, right? The guys who are into lacrosse and the people that are students of the game are always like, hey, wait a minute, when a certain game goes the wrong way, you're like, all right, let's see who is in the starting attack line, who's starting net in the second half, and you're like, oh, okay, this is a tune-up game for this team, and this other team's like fighting for merit. So it's like,
with my co-host, we always send each other like, did you see this score? And then one of us will be like, one of us will be connected to one of the coaches, and we'll be like, yeah, so this is what actually happened. Like, it's a little bit misleading. Is it still impressive? Sure, but it's a bit misleading. And mom and dad on Twitter, they don't know the difference between what the coach is planning on doing. So it's always quite interesting. But
we're both film guys, so you just know, like, I'm not gonna make a decision how I feel about that game until I watch the whole game.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, what numbers are playing right now and what's going on, because the box score is misleading 95%.
Yeah, hey, was that 3-time All-American? Did he even play? Yeah. Oh no, there he is.
You're like,
here he is in khakis.
Yeah, sit on the sidelines wearing a ball cap, not even dressed up. That's happened before.
So speaking of improving the NAI, like, what do you think is like one of the biggest changes that could be kind of implemented or worked towards to make it either more legitimate, more popular, more well known, or just more competitive?
That's a great question. I think that there's plenty of things that I would love for the NAIA to do, but I think the most important thing is I think we're doing a great job with media coverage between the Lax All-Star guys and our boy at Lax Updates. I think those NAIA Lax Updates, I think you guys all do a really good job in providing as much coverage as possible and having our own little bubble. I think that this year was going to be super awesome because the national tourney was in Savannah, Georgia at SCAD. And I think we do a pretty good job with media coverage and everything like that. The sponsorship of the national championship sport is going to be probably the next level, and that's something that the NAIA really can't fuel. It's got to be a university basis. But some things I would like to see, there's a lot of how do I put this? There's a lot of weight on the coaches' back to fuel the NAIA, and I think they should trust a little bit more third-party like people, like much like in the NCAA where they do All-American voting that comes down to like 4 or 5 private parties, and rather than nowadays with the NAIA, most of that voting is not at the all conference level, but at the all American level is through the coaches. It's like you kind of want some unbiased people, and there is some unbiased people, but those unbiased people might not be educated on the sport. Which is, listen, I'm not here to point fingers and say they should do this, do that, but if I wanted to see something, it'd probably be that. And I don't know, maybe sponsorship for the national tourney. There's a couple different things they can work with, but I think over time, the things that I've wanted for the sport at the NAIA level has been there, and it's gotten better over the years. I don't think they've taken a step back yet, and I think there's way more steps to take forward. So it's not really much like I can really pinpoint what I want to see. I would love to see at the WAC level T-shirts when you win the conference championship. I just know it's never gonna happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen it at other levels, and when you get to the conference championship, when I was at Detroit, like you'd get a backpack with the conference logo, you get a T-shirt, and then obviously if you win the whole thing, you get to go to the next level and you get a ring. So I think having some kind of reward doesn't hurt, but some things that I've always thought would be nice would be, you know, at least even on the conference level, and this might have changed in the last year and a half since I was involved, but we never really had mandatory film exchange.
Yeah, that
And
was
that's
like on the
always been a
docket this
pain.
year.
That was always
Yeah.
a pain because it's like, how can we be legitimate? How can we be the best coaches we can be and put the best product out there if
Mhm.
we can't even get film? And it's just always bothered me. And the other thing is, and again, this might have changed recently, but there's no real limit because we're not a fully sponsored championship sport. There's really no like scholarship limits, and except for those placed on it by the university themselves. So
Mhm.
some schools giving absurd amounts of money to lacrosse players, while other schools not very much. And I understand that might not change, depending on what ceiling that they put on it. But having at least some kind of consistent ceiling on how much athletic aid an individual player can give or a program could give could help some of the younger programs catch up a little bit and help spur some growth. Because right now, if a certain school, I'm not going to name any names, there's quite a few of them that have pretty good setups for giving aid. They can definitely dominate quickly and lure those D2 kids away and maybe get a D1 transfer here or there. So I think those two things would also be important.
Mhm. I think pertaining to the athletic scholarships that the universities, there is a conference rule that they're supposed to follow. But most of the time, like those books don't really get checked unless it's a sponsored sport. So
Right.
we never really do know what kids are being offered at other universities. Like I'm never gonna ask a kid who I lose to another NAIA school, like, hey, would they end up paying you over there? Like I never have asked that before, but our
Yeah.
motto at LTU is, if the kid wants to be there, he's gonna be there. And we're not like a traditional liberal arts school. We're we're a STEM school, technology school that is rigorous academics. So it's like it's no sweat off my back if a kid's like, I just don't feel comfortable going here because retention is very important for us. I mean, the last like 4 or 5 years, we've only lost like out of the 55 kids came in, we've only lost like 5 or 6 kids. So we do a lot of in-depth recruiting at LTU. So it's not like I refuse to get in bidding wars. And I know some coaches are really keen to get into bidding wars. But I'm in the utter belief of always is I recruit kids that I want to be around, and I shouldn't have to buy my friends. So, and some people have that philosophy. So I agree.
That's, that was always my plan A, but at the same time, I wasn't fortunate enough to be at LTU in terms of academics. So,
Yeah.
Our profile where I was very similar to some of the other schools in the conference. So we did kind of have to get into at least a little bit of an informed bidding war. I mean, there's always a limit, but the only time I ever asked a kid to see his offer was like, hey, here's my max offer. However, if you can I hate to say the word prove, but kids inflate numbers all the time. They might say I have a 10 grand offer, but in reality, it's like half of it's student loans and they don't even understand it. So we might say, hey, if you can just show us your financial aid letter from school A, we can at least match it. And that would be the most intrusive we would be, because again, I would hate to lose a kid over $500, but some parents have literally said, listen, your school, that school, they're pretty similar. We like you a lot, but we don't have the money. So we're going to just go to the cheapest place possible. And I hate that's the case for them, because ideally we want the best fit and we want everything like that. But also it is a business where we got to fill the roster. We got to be competitive, or else we don't have a job. So
I agree. Yeah.
That's always plan A. Plan A is to get the best fit, the kids that want to be there more than anything, and where it all makes sense. But sometimes you have to take chances on kids, and sometimes, you have to.
Chances.
Yeah.
It's like the kid doesn't work out, man. Just no matter how bad you want the kid to be there and to be working hard, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And that's, you can't lead you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink it, kind of thing. So
yeah, exactly. You do your best, you try your best. We always told recruits, we're never going to lie to you. Like, this is what it is here. Like, you're not going to show up one day and be like, wait, what? No, we're very honest, because I'd rather you say no now than to call me and tell me you're transferring. So we lost way more recruits on the front end than we did on the back end by being
absolutely.
honest. Perfect. So let's dive in real quick. I mean, COVID is such an outplayed topic of conversation, but since it's not going away anytime soon and things keep developing, fall ball right now, as we speak, I have stuff going on in the background saying, will we have college football in the fall? So to go off that, will we have college lacrosse in the fall? What do you think? What's your gut?
My gut feeling. So my gut feeling.
Where are you leaning? Let's say leaning. I don't want you to get in trouble.
I don't think there's going to be fall athletics. I just can't see it happening. For 2 reasons. I think that universities are gearing up to see if that there's a huge domino effect in college athletics and just colleges in general. As much as people like to believe their colleges are different than other colleges, they're really not. They're all very similar in how their universities operate and how they respond to certain things. And no one wants to be that school that is the first or the last to do something. And as soon as you see a couple start to cancel athletics, then you'll see a bunch of others. And listen, I want nothing more than normalcy to happen. And I completely agree that, COVID, as crazy and as serious as it is, like, I want it to just go away, but it's not just going to go away. It's not like Thanos' snap and COVID's out of our realm. And I just don't, I can't see the university putting other people at risk to have athletics. I mean, is there a chance that, things happen and it just suddenly the tRNA drops under one and it just kind of develops into the common cold and, we all hold hands and dance towards the life of normalcy? I think that it could always happen, but with college athletics kind of like canceling and, you see Michigan Dearborn and how you say Bowdoin? Is it Bowdoin?
Bowdoin.
And I like they just cancel athletics, and I think that I'm not surprised by it whatsoever, and I wouldn't be surprised if more people canceled it, and I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't as well. But I'm in the under belief that we won't have fall athletics. I think spring's going to be a good time to start, but I mean, there's a lot of play. I mean, the football's king around the Midwest, around for us, and having that hard conversation that maybe football isn't happening. I mean, soccer and all that stuff can be pushed to the spring, and winter sports are probably going to happen indoors, but we'll see. It's just the uncertainty behind it is always the most difficult part of the conversation, because not knowing is definitely, it makes your mind wander on where it could go and where it could be. And I think that we're going to be back on campus, but athletics, I don't know. And you being at, both of us being at the high school level with everything too. So, those guys going back to school or maybe not going back to school, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and there's also like a lot of unanswered solutions. There's a lot of unanswered like that. So
Yeah, I mean, the week before our Michigan high school tryouts were happening, we started to get wind that this was more serious, that things were about to change. We were lucky at our high school. Most of the parents, I work at a private school, so most of the parents work at, University of Michigan hospital. So they were like very aware of what was happening and what might be to come. So we were starting to prepare early, and it got to a point. I'm like, are we gonna do something, or are we gonna not do something? Like, I'm just tired of the waiting. Like,
yeah,
are we gonna cancel, or are we not gonna cancel? I hate having like to go to practice like the first 4 days of tryouts. I was like, hey, I have all these great plans for this year. However, any day now they could pull the plug, and then so you're like you're 1 foot in, like hoping for the best, but you're also like you don't want to get yourself too committed and then have everything just fall apart on you. I can only imagine you were halfway through a lacrosse season at the college level, and it's like,
oh yeah,
done.
it was really tough. I mean, I think we talked about this before. It was actually pretty surreal how it all happened. I think we were honestly one of the last college games to play, like in the country.
You were. Yeah, you were.
And it was, you have these moments in life, and whatever mystics or religion people believe in, or whatever type of grounds they believe in, you get those feelings like, every couple of years, and about like you just that gut check in. We were that Thursday night, we played Kaiser. No, we played Kaiser on Thursday, played, and went Wednesday. We were watching film and in the hotel, and we had only one senior on the team. And the one senior is the kid who I was freshman with my first year. And I kind of like paused the film, and I was reading the room, and I'd been watching the news. Ivy League had canceled, next sack had canceled, Patriot League was canceled, and you kind of like read the writing on the wall. And some people are like, the NAIA is a different thing, but like I said, everything kind of dominoes after that. So I knew it was happening. So I said to the guys, like, listen, I'm a more positive person. I'm the funny guy in the room. And I looked at everyone and I said, tomorrow's could very well be the last game of the season. And we have one person in this room who definitely isn't playing lacrosse next year. And, tomorrow's got to be a special day. And man, it couldn't have been a better day. I mean, we played, Kaiser is one of the.
You guys played phenomenal that day.
Yeah, it is. Kaiser is a phenomenal team, and hats off to them. They played an astonishing game. I mean, they're a great team, but it was something about that night, and even Patrick had tweeted, it's like red sunset. It's like 78 degrees. Beautiful night, like not like a cloud in the sky, and it was just so surreal that these guys, like, they didn't know if the season was over. Seniors didn't know if it was gonna be their last year, like last game, and we played a game. It was a great game. From there, where that all the NCAA and NAIA told us, like, don't shake hands after the game because COVID was happening on. So like that's what we're talking about. We play a full contact sport, and then like, all right, no shaking hands after the game. So whatever happens. Yeah. And so we pack up the hotel that night. We celebrated. We go out to dinner. Super exciting win. Next day, we wake up at the airport. We get the phone call from our AD. He's like, we're meeting with the WAC right now. We had just found out, because people weren't canceling their season. people were suspending their season. So they're like, we're going to cancel all their out of conference games and we're only going to play conference. And we're like, all right, sweet. We're gearing up to play Aquinas on Saturday. And that's a big game for us every year. So we're, eyes front to those guys. And we literally land in Detroit and, Nemzak gets like 6 or 7 missed calls and it's Scott Trudeau. And he tells, before he could tell our senior, the NAIA, the WAC tweets out that the season was canceled and it was heartbreaking. I mean, we're coming back from a spring break trip that's the most successful spring break trip we've ever had. We went down there, went 2-1, had a heartbreaking loss to Reinhardt, but we beat a really good D3 Fairleigh Dickinson from New Jersey while we were down there, and that was kind of like low key. No one really knew about that. And the bus ride from the airport to school was probably, you could literally cut the air with a knife. It was so tense. It was like everyone's just in shock. Like, so to the seniors who aren't returning next year in competition, I feel for you guys. Like, like at the high school level, it's even worse because like those guys even have like one game under their belt. They got literally the week of tryouts in crappy weather. It wasn't even like you guys were playing in like 65 degrees sunny. And my Romeo guys, like I felt so bad because I'm like, those are guys. The reason why I took over the program was those seniors. I'd coached them since they were freshmen. That was my first year coaching with those guys. And it was like all so surreal. So it's definitely gut wrenching, but I think all good things that happen, you're sacrificing for a better thing. And I know, people in the front line needed that. They needed that breather. And can you imagine if we didn't pause at that time and we went like an extra 2 weeks? Like, good God, like the hospitals and, we're very fortunate we caught it at a good time or a better time that could have been. But
things certainly could have been worse. But like you said, there was no. You look for the silver lining in those situations and you try to make the best of it. And I think you guys did a good job. Everybody got, we wrote an article about that, how everybody got creative to honor the seniors and to do their best. And, we were all in uncharted waters. No one had ever been through anything like this. So, now we move forward and we try to see what next year looks like. And hopefully,
I know, seriously,
hopefully there is a next year, hopefully the PLL goes off without a hitch and we can enjoy some lacrosse this year still. And then, we'll see how the NLL goes and we'll see how everything else goes from here. But, like you said, looks like everyone's or most people are going back to campus in some form.
Yeah.
We would love to have football, of course. We're always fans, but you can't have just football, right? You got to have everything.
Yeah, I know.
If you're going to have football. So we'll see what happens. I mean, like you said, fall ball is unlikely, but hopefully there's teams out in the East that don't even do like the Ivy League and NESCAC. I don't even think they do fall ball. I don't think they're allowed
to. They do like team workouts and conditioning. I think they may do like a couple.
Yeah.
It's not anything too crazy. I mean, our football's like pretty long. The NEI, you can go pretty long. It's longer than D3, so it's like
you can go like 5-6 weeks depending on how you work your schedule for the year. So yeah, it's going to be like that. I mean, other schools have done it. Everyone will adapt. At the end of the day, everyone will adapt. Everyone's on the same playing field. And hopefully we don't lose too many programs over this. I mean, that's what we're really worried about.
I think that the big issue right now and with the NCAA and the NAI is just hoping that these places stay afloat. I mean, at the lacrosse level, you see the Furman get cut, and that's super heartbreaking at the Division I level, and super happy to see that there's been no other news. And there's always some names floating around that you just don't want to believe, but until it happens, you want to act shocked.
Yeah, well, listen, it's a convenient time for an AD to look at the budget and say what's not making us money.
Seriously.
And now, luckily, at the NAI D3 level, athletics is it's enrollment driven, and for the most part, if you're carrying your roster of 20 or more, you're going to cover your cost to the school. So, we're in a good position at those schools. It's those other schools where maybe your roster has always been historically low. It doesn't really warrant keeping around, and it's easier to just cut it. It's a nice time for the AD to just be like, you know what, COVID, and then just
Seriously.
slash it. So I'll be shocked if there's not a few more. I'll be even more shocked if a couple schools themselves don't survive this, because a lot of schools don't carry the endowment needed to survive a giant hit in enrollment. So,
Mhm.
not to be all doomsday-ish by any means, I think, most people will be fine, but certainly there is some reason to be worried.
No, I agree. I think I don't think it's like doomsday. I think it's like pure realism now. I think
Well, these are
people
places that we're gonna eventually cut it anyway, or eventually gonna close anyway. This is just sped it
yeah,
up.
yeah,
And,
absolutely. I think yeah.
the market's saturated with private schools that have been charging way too much for way too long. So if you're one of those schools that isn't like LTU, that isn't academically challenging and well regarded and has a great reputation, you have to be worried. If you have just an average education and you charge 40 grand a year, people are going to stop coming.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a money cow for some people. I think it's like the most like interesting thing in the world to I can't imagine recruiting anywhere else. I think that I talk about that with our head coach a lot, and I just can't imagine selling a product that isn't LTU at this point. And it's like, we're very fortunate to have such great student athletes. Like we joke around about what kid are we eventually going to find a kid who gets a perfect SAT score, perfect ACT score, because we're so close. We're so close to finding a recruit like that and bringing them in. The people we compete with academically normally it's like the University of Michigan or like Kettering University or somewhere in the Midwest, like a D3 school. And it's like you look at that experience, and I mean Concordia Ann Arbor, where you at, is also a great university. It's like, how do you sell a product that's not selling itself at one point? And it's crazy to think that some people are out there selling a university that maybe isn't as academically inclined. And then the university you see like 2 months later folds, and you're like, oh wow, that's the reason. It's kind of a sinking ship, and I hope it doesn't happen to a lot more. Like I said before, I'm a fan of the sport. All I want to see is lacrosse and boom. I want to see like every Division I team have a team, and NAIA have 120 teams and have awesome media coverage and have the professional league grow. And but it's we're definitely going through some speed bumps right now, and hopefully the people that do get through great, that they stay strong for years to come, and something like this never happens ever again. I mean,
yeah, no matter what happens, we'll come out of this, a little bit smarter, a little bit leaner.
Seriously. Yeah.
I mean, I know budget cuts are coming regardless.
Leaner.
Well, but we might have put on 15 pounds, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you mean like physically or like financially.
Yeah, but I know that all these budgets are getting, I have D1 coaches telling me that they're being asked to cut 25%. I know one conference, they even said like, you don't have to play everyone in the conference this year. Like we will figure it out, but to cut your travel costs, because that is the quickest way to cut your budget, is to cut one or two overnight trips, and there's 25%. So, but listen, man, it's been great having you on the show.
Yeah,
I just want to thank you for being here. Episode 3, and we'll definitely have you on in a couple months and see where we're at.
Yeah, hopefully next time we're talking about lacrosse happening on the weekends and normalcy is back.
Exactly, buddy. That's it for another episode of Going Offsides, presented by the Lacrosse Collective. Please follow us at Lax Collective on Twitter, or go to our website, thelacrossecollective.com. Stay tuned for more episodes.